Okay. I think it's working now, ladies. We are always at the mercy of the internet when we go live, but welcome to the High River District Healthcare Foundation. I'm Jody Seeley, and believe it or not, we are already up to episode number 5 of our healthcare conversations. And joining us this month, we have Carissa, who is from the High River Cancer Center. She is our patient navigator, and Sandy is joining us today, who is a patient of the High River Cancer Center. And this month's topic in our healthcare conversations is a Cancer Month and highlighting our cancer center in our community and the journeys that people take. And ladies, we appreciate you coming on and joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I know earlier Tilly was in the room with you, Carissa. Has she left?
She has. I will get her back.
The highlight, the official mascot of the High River Cancer Center, which we'd posted a picture of her on our social media last week. And most popular post of all time is Tilly. And I think she's probably one of the most popular people in the cancer center too. She's just been such a joy for people there.
She has, and often we'll get cards saying thank you for the care, and they're first addressed to Tilly.
And you try not to take any offense at all.
That's right.
Oh, it's great. Well, ladies, I appreciate you connecting with us. And we're going to talk a little bit about the High River Cancer Center and some of the information around it in a moment with Carissa. But Sandy, I'm hoping we can start some conversation with you today. And I believe it's about 8 years ago, you received your cancer diagnosis, and would love for you to share with us just kind of what that was and kind of how some of this journey has been for you.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm really grateful that the nurses suggest me. I have a love relationship, I think, with every one of them, including Carissa, because it's really hard to describe the kind of support and care that changes your whole cancer experience. And just on a note with Tilly as being part of the staff, that dog has an innate quality when you're kind of having a rough day. She will wait for the warm blanket, but she will be on your lap and she will sit there for a while till you're kind of easing down. She's a real smart little girl. So that has been a good addition to staff, let's say.
Yeah.
So just for mine, I was diagnosed in 2014 with a breast cancer diagnosis, which had metastasized to my bone. So that made it, terminal category. Everybody that knows me knows those aren't really terms or language that I use. And I think like cancer care has just come so far. And for me, of course, it started at Tom Baker when it was a little more intense, when there was radiation sessions and the original sort of hard drugs, if you will, of chemotherapy. And of course, all the things, loss of hair. So I'm very happy that's my hair's grown back in, but it wasn't that bad compared to a lot of things that were happening at the time. Then I got switched out to the cancer center in High River, and that's a game changer. And I'll tell you, from not having to pay for parking, and these are just the sort of logistical statistics, but, a more intimate setting, walking in where people know you, they know your information, that just creates a sense of peace and calm. And so that was about 6 or 7 months in for me when I changed from Tom Baker, and was very grateful to get to go out to High River. And I was out there at the beginning when it was upstairs, just down at the end of the maternity ward. There was like 2 rooms with 2 chairs each. It was kind of, wow, they need something better. And so, there's the whole story. It's not my story. I'll leave the High River Cancer Center to Carissa, because I'm sure she's better on all the statistics. But for me, it's a thing of, when I hit 100 rounds, I guess, as we call it, I came in that morning to a chair with some decorations on it and a little care bag. And I was like, well, who's this for? It's a new patient. They're like, no, it's you. You're at 100 rounds. And I'm like, you see, people caring to that degree and being able to and having that close-knit thing amongst themselves and then transferring it to you as a patient, you are included in a place where it doesn't feel like you're going to have a lot of inclusivity. And so, they're celebrating any of this stuff along the way. And especially through COVID and losing a lot of connections and friendships, they're not in my Facebook things and we're not texting each other, but let's just say they've created this, again, warm, embracing, buffering kind of thing that's just completely changed my cancer journey for me, especially as a woman, because I think we don't do that, where we have our voice all the time. We're not sure. And I see a lot of the senior women that everybody's kind of got a voice there. They know everyone by name, and that's really empowering right off the start.
How does having a voice help to change that piece? Like, if for especially if if you're able to kind of paint that for those of us who haven't gone through a cancer journey, why does that make a difference?
I'm on another committee right now, which I'm really grateful about, with an oncologist that's doing some studies into your original initial consults with your oncologist and setting up your team and your options. And I think a lot of feedback I get. I am definitely in the cancer community, not by choice, not a club I would have joined, but I have some of the best friends. And, they give me a lot of good feedback, and a lot of them aren't in good parent, what do you call, patient-doctor relationships. And so for me, that's that whole thing to say, hang on a second, you realize this is your thing. This is your journey. You get to advocate for yourself. And if you don't know the tools, you know what I noticed, like at the cancer center, every time I've been nervous or I've been scared or I've talked about my scan results or just asking for help, people really want to help. And though nurses, of course, that's why Carissa can't just say she's a patient navigator. She is a nurse. She's given me treatment. Like, that is like the most powerful job. And I don't think, well, I know we don't, in the state of how it is right now, give the credit in all that way. And I know that nurses look super busy and efficient, and that's what they're doing, but they always stop. I've never had an experience where someone hasn't, because someone wants you to ask for help, and they want to empower you too. And I think they've got the skills more. I think the training is for them. I don't know if that's correct, Carissa, correct call on it, but I feel like there must be some kind of training, because it seems like all the nurses just really have a strong voice most of the time, which I'm so grateful for.
It comes through many years of experience and finding our own voice from being a new nurse, and always a little scared to call the doctor and whatnot. And as we gain experience and we find that, we're that first contact with the patients. Yes, doctors definitely, of course, are important and everything, but they're not the ones delivering that care, and having that frequent contact with patients. And it just comes with years of experience. We maybe don't want to say how many years, but we did add up some numbers some time ago about, between all of us nurses here, I think we had like over 300 years experience or something.
That's amazing.
So yeah.
Well, and I think a question that both of you can answer from both sides of how you come into this conversation, but I think a lot of times, especially as women, when we want to advocate for our own health and we want to ask the questions, it a lot of times feels like when you're asking a question, you're questioning the person, when in reality you're just looking for information. Does that make sense? I think we hesitate a lot because we think we're going to insult somebody, or they're too busy to answer the question or whatever. And so we hesitate and we stop. And I don't know if you found that in your journey, Sandy or Carissa, if you see that from patients, but the more, I would assume, the more questions that a person can ask, the more information then they can gather through their journey is just going to help them through that process.
That's exactly right. When we say to patients, there is no such thing as a dumb question or a stupid questions, because they might say, well, this sounds silly. I don't know if I should ask this, but we say ask, because if you don't know and you keep that in, and then you're worried about it, or you're worried about the answer or unsure, just ask. There's no such thing as a silly question.
And I think something that we don't really realize, I don't know if it's a North American, Western kind of medicine, but there still obviously is a power relationship between doctor and patient, where we see them as the all-knowing, omnipotent, answers for everything. And so it is really good. I just managed to land 2 phenomenal oncologists, one transferred and replaced. Oops.
You're okay. Keep
You're
going.
there.
Oh, okay. Somehow it just kind of went out for me on my page. It's like, what's going on here? So,
Tricking
yeah,
you.
for me, it was just a matter of, sorry. We were doing treatment, my original treatment, and I was in, and I was probably going to have about 3 more rounds. And I'd already had several months, and I was really feeling the effects. And I had a conversation, and I see I'm very fortunate. I have my whole family that don't live here, but they're through Canada and incredibly supportive, which I know so many people do not have. And we just had a kind of a powwow kind of information thing on how, as a family, what were we doing. And they all said, you really should just voice your concerns. And I said to the doctor, I don't think I want to do anymore. And she said, well, that's a chance. And I said, well, I'll take it. And we'll do scans in a couple of months and see where it was, if it was a good or a bad decision. Because I really, quite frankly, I don't think I'm going to be able to manage. And the fact that that person, as a doctor, was so open to this conversation, um, I'm not going to say because it's a female doctor that makes a difference, because I don't think that's what goes on in the dynamic. I think it is. I think it is doctor patient again. But so giving me that opportunity, and it turned out fine, and relieved me of a lot of the stuff until I went on to my regular maintenance therapy afterwards, and that's when I transferred out to High River. So that voice is really hard. I advocate all the time. I've been with youth groups and Canadian diabetes, and volunteer with African literacy. It's amazing how many women don't have any kind of a voice, because when you do, like you say, Carissa, through your years you get it. But when you do have it, and we were kind of raised that way, you don't know what it's like to not have that voice and say, I don't actually like that opinion. I'm going to get a second opinion, you know? So I'm not sure what the tools are either. I kind of wonder about how people go about that when they don't feel like they have a voice.
Anything pop into your mind with that, Carissa?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's cultural related, and people's individual backgrounds and whatnot. And I think, like Sandra was saying about well, maybe she didn't quite say this, but with doctors, you're so often, pardon me, people think, oh, that's the doctor. I have to respect what she says and go along with it, like that they know best, right? And I won't. We have patients too. Well, I don't want to say anything because the doctor knows. But you are your number one advocate. You know you better than anybody else, and that healthcare professional should be open to listening to your opinions and your thoughts and feelings and fears and everything. And you are the one, like Sandra said, if you're wanting to stop treatment, then that is your choice, or scale back or whatever. That's 100% up to you. So people do need, and they don't, a lot of times don't realize that their voice is the most powerful and they need to use it.
And by all means, we're not speaking against any healthcare
Oh,
professional in
no,
any
no,
way,
no,
but just
no.
reminding people, all people, but because our theme has kind of been women focused this year, is just that if you have that nudge or that thought or that concern or that element, like, just to voice it, and that you have a great team of people behind
Hmm.
you at all times, even when it, maybe even when it doesn't feel like it. It's just reminding ourselves that power is within us. And
That's right.
when it comes to the High River Cancer Center, Carissa, we know someone like Sandy has experienced kind of a couple of different places to receive treatment, but I think there's something extra special about what we do in High River and the center itself. Even the fact that it's 100% community funded to get to the place to have that center where we're at is something unique. And probably, I don't know if you've experienced that elsewhere in all of your years of nursing.
No, no. I mean, I did grow up in a small town and did work rural nursing for a few years. So I do, I'm familiar with that kind of background of community and tight knit, close knit, staff and the or the facilities, the fundraising and the community involvement in that. So I did come from that, but yeah, I worked a number of years in Calgary, and you don't see that there. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, the community as a whole, through lotteries or whatnot, raises money, but there's not that feeling.
Yeah.
It's just a big pot.
Well, and I think
So,
too that a lot of times when people think rural healthcare, they think that it's lesser than, or I mean, because obviously we don't have all the equipment and the size of operating rooms or whatever different centers look like in big cities. But when it comes to like technology and different pieces, rural communities, and I know we can really only speak for High River directly, has some pretty amazing things, and it's not a lesser than experience.
That's right. We've had some struggles over the years with Tom Baker, sending us patients, or some patients themselves thinking that maybe we're not quite up to the qualifications that Tom Baker nurses are or whatnot. But we've all done the same training, and like I said, our years of experience add up to quite a number. And we've been doing this a long time, and we certainly, I mean, there's no way we could be doing our jobs right now if we didn't have the qualifications of any other center. So definitely. And just when people finally do come here, and they're like, some people have not come from the beginning of their treatment. Maybe they held back, went to Tom Baker for a few times and whatnot. And when they show up, they're like, well, why didn't I come here right off the bat? Like, what took me so long?
Like, we don't know, but we've been here waiting for you.
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome. Well, a lot of the conversation we've had over this past month, highlighting Cancer Month and different conversations around it, and either of you or both of you want to jump in on this, is a lot of that conversation has stemmed around early detection and, being aware of your bodies and different things. Would you have any tips, suggestions, or ideas for people in just helping to manage their health, to either prevent and or get through a cancer diagnosis?
My number one thing that I say to people who talk to me about my job and nursing and whatnot and cancer, and is, like I was saying earlier, about advocating for yourself, but you know your body best, and you know when something's not quite right. And it might not be anything, but it might be something. And I'd say it's always best if you feel like there is something off, something not quite right, go get it checked out. Always. That is the number one way to find, there's Tilly,
Tilly.
welcoming, to discover anything that may be wrong and to get it in the early stages if at all possible. So some people don't want to know the bad news, or they're worried about it and they don't go, but go and get it checked out. Because one of the things that I see in some referrals that I get, people had symptoms, 6 months, 12 months before they actually went to the doctor. And now we're looking at stage 3 and stage 4 diagnoses. So you know your body, and go get things checked out or advocate for yourself. I know sometimes it takes a few trips, or a few basic things that get done and nothing shows up, but if something is still wrong, you get that checked out, because people often go through numerous different tests before something is discovered. So yeah, just advocate for yourself.
I think on that, that's really, I love that, Carissa, because, the problem with all of us women mostly is we're so busy. And I can remember 6 months before my diagnosis, I was at work, I was doing a second job, full-time job, and caring for a daughter with mental health. And, it was just that thing that goes and goes and goes. It's like, get off, stop, listen to your body. Something's going to give here. And sure enough, something gave. And sure enough, I had missed a mammogram 2 years previous. And I did have, with the breast, I did have things going on. And I was just, it's really easy to pass it off and not listen to that inner voice. And I think that's one of the things we talk about when women don't have the voice, is because we don't listen to our own inner voice about stuff. And we don't get upset about it or outraged about it and say, no, something's wrong here. Like you said, Chris said, like sometimes you'll go to a doctor and everything seems, tests come back and you're like, no, you know yourself. Like, it's the most important thing for me is self-care now. And really, I really advocate that as Wellspring is, the community, that the Calgary group for, well, it's kind of all over Canada now and growing. And it's a lifeline, and it's not something I would have ever joined. But I think that when cancer is all gone, said and done and gone, which it's going to be in my lifetime, that there is going to still continue to be wellness centers like Wellspring, because it's about meditation and Tai Chi and art and music and slowing down and expressing yourselves and healing, because women don't do that either. We're all the caregivers. I don't care what anyone says. I've not still yet met a woman that's not a caregiver in some capacity, whether or not she's a parent. And I don't know why we do that to ourselves, because I'm kind of grateful. And I feel a bit blessed with my diagnosis in many ways, because I never, ever would have allowed myself this stop and slow down to really examine my own body. Now I know the doctors laugh, but now I know when something's going on or something's changed, or, because I've learned to tune into my body. And that's a skill for sure. Like Carissa says, you have to really be thinking about yourself and tuning in. So we're not taught that enough. It's not going on. We're just go, go, go. you know?
Well, and I think that comes down to more conversations like this. And so we're really grateful the two of you could take some time to share with us on that today, because I think we don't give ourselves enough grace when we know we need to slow down. We don't like we like to punish ourselves a little bit for taking that break. And I think, Sandy, you could probably speak to, like, from 8 years ago to now, the amount you've learned about slowing down and listening to your body and all of that process. Like, and now you can pass along that great knowledge that you have learned. Like, we're grateful for that.
Yeah, I hope so. I would never want to be the real advocate and say, I've always said and been quoted, the cancer doesn't define me or my life or anything, but it's definitely impacted me. And it's a thing that says to me, if you have a voice and people need to hear some things that are encouraging, it's the main point. I feel a little bored with my own story to repeat it over and over, like the technical, clinical.
You're like,
And
oh
then,
yeah, this again.
well,
Yeah.
because when you're in cancer groups, everyone does, and it's like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, because that's not really the point. The technical and logistic and all that stuff is really not the whole in the whole scheme of things. But people say it's important to say the actual, because you never know something about early detection, or like we just talked about, like the mammograms. You may not, and there's lots of controversy, but still, that is a detector, and that may catch something else doesn't catch. So just being on your own health care. I mean, women's care is complicated, but it's super important. Yeah. What are you sending as a message to your children or nieces or sisters? And yeah, I know my sisters, I have 3, all got on going to get their mammograms. I thought, weren't you guys? They're like, well, not consistently. I'm like, well, shame on you. Like, what the heck? I thought we were a little more progressive with our health. So yeah.
It takes a, so, and I guess what's your go-to or your suggestions or tips, Sandy? And I mean, you were given the T word, right? A terminal diagnosis. 8 years later, you're still here, like with beautiful hair back, living strong and doing amazing things. But how do you put that over here and keep going? And how do you wake up every day staying positive and moving forward? And we don't know who will see this. Someone could be at the beginning of their journey, in the middle, don't know it's coming yet. How do you keep going?
I mean, my experience, like everyone else, a nurse or anyone else in any position, is unique to me. I know hope is. I'm the eternal optimist, and I don't let, like I said, I don't let language define me. So I will talk to my cells and say, "You guys are happy today. We're doing well." I don't say I have to go to treatment. I say I get to go. I'm in Canada. I'm getting this for free. I'm so blessed with all these things. And so I guess it's always, as you would always say, you just come down to supreme gratitude. No, I don't wake up every day happy. Oh, good grief. And
We're
I
still
think
human.
Carissa, exactly. And I've been in treatment where I've been really freaked out a few times. I know Carissa, the rest have seen where I'm just really nervous, or I'm annoyed with a new nurse, and I just think, oh my gosh, you're so horrible. Why would you talk to someone? But I've advocated, so I've made a small change for myself, then maybe that alters that person's behavior or change towards me too. So it's been honest, it's been sincere, it's never been out of malice. So I think that's just my thing. I'm really that eternal optimist and hopeful person, because I do believe we can heal ourselves, and through all the tools that we get. And they promote Wellspring at the High River Cancer Center quite beautifully. And Victoria Quilts, I became a member with. Not that I can quilt at all, but I can do a Facebook page and I can join the women. And they've been so. It's another community of just being embraced. I thought, why would a cancer patient be with these women? But that whole thing of delivering the quilts, as Carissa knows, she's always got several bags lined up in her office, and you're going into a place of hope where people bake home baked cookies when we're allowed to, and it's just you can't help but feel again that sort of hope for you almost, and you kind of don't want to let people down too. And of course, not everybody makes it, and not everybody has a good experience, but you still kind of have to have some kind of, I guess, dignity through the whole thing and accept the people that want to help you. And so many people do. I almost don't think I've had one bad experience from a tech to a nurse to a doctor. And I think you can create that in a lot of ways too. So I guess I actively put energy into doing that too. I want them to know how important their life in my life is for me because it matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. And Carissa, what about from your side? Like your team deals with the good days and the bad days with all of the patients. Like Sandy said, sometimes we're joyful, sometimes we're not. I mean, your team goes through the roller coaster of emotions, I think, along with the patients. And how does your team practice their self-care, and how can we support a team like yours also?
That's a good point, and I know often people that I meet when they ask, "What do you do?" and I work in oncology, like, "Oh, that must be so hard," and "Oh, I don't know if I could do that," and for someone just jumping into it, yeah, or from the outside looking in, yeah, it is hard. It would be hard. Again, through the years of experiencing it and learning how to work with the patients and how to deal with it and whatnot, you learn. We have a great team here. The staff is amazing. I love coming to work. I worked a couple extra shifts last week and I was like, yay, I get to go to work today. And, patients, when they're done their treatment, sometimes they're completely done and we don't see them back. Other times, patients are just done part of their journey. Maybe they'll be back. Maybe we're waiting to hear what their next treatment plan could be or whatever. But when they're done, they have a bell ringing ceremony. So typically they do like to have make sure that they're completely done. But again, we're celebrating every step. So we have a bell. We ring the bell. We invite them to have a family member around. We video it for them, take pictures, and we clap. And Tilly just goes nuts. She loves the bell. And we celebrate those milestones with the patients. And we're so happy for them. And yes, of course, there's the times where it's not the happy times and we lose patients and it affects us all. And we're it's hard to explain. I'm not sure maybe what my coworkers, if each of us have our own way of dealing with it. I know like probably helps, as being women as well. We talk about it a lot. And, if it affects us, we share that emotion piece of it. My years of working hematology oncology at Peter Lougheed, I know if we lost a patient that day, that was so tragic. And just even leaving work with my coworkers together, just walking out together, just talking. It doesn't even have to be about that situation. Just share, just having that time together, and and as a nurse, like, even getting out, like now the weather's getting better and like going for a walk in the evening or, just things like that, small things. I don't know about others. I don't really do anything like I'm saying, okay, this is my self-care because of a hard day at work. It's just, I just incorporate things into my life, I guess.
Yeah.
So I have pets, so playing with the pets, going to the dog park.
Those are big things. Like
Yeah.
they release all kinds of good chemicals into ourselves. So that is good. And on that note, like Healthcare Heroes Day, which we started annually a couple of years ago with the foundation, is coming up on May the 5th. And so it'll be our community's opportunity to give some love back to like your team, Carissa, and everybody else in both Nanton and High River who have been incredible in supporting our community via healthcare. So if you're watching this and thinking like, okay, as community, how can we also help teams like Carissa's, is on that day, we are going to go crazy for our healthcare teams and try to show them the most amount of love that we can. And we appreciate, of course, what you do with
Thank you.
that. And Sandy, appreciate you coming on to share your journey. And we could probably talk for hours on all of the things that we would love people to know about this journey, but we'll be mindful of time and just know that what you've shared today, I without a doubt know is going to help somebody in their journey. So thank you so much. And give Tilly like a big scruffy rub down hug for us.
Yes.
She's
Oh,
just
yes.
awesome. Sandy, Carissa, thank you again. And thank you for joining us for a healthcare conversation. Please feel free to share this onto your social media so that we can help spread the word to more women and men in our communities to advocate for their health. Have a great day, everybody.